Hello there, lovely folks of YouTube. Ren here. I'm working on my new camera now. Hopefully this will work because I've tried to take this several times. There's a lot of quirks in learning how to position everything and make sure I'm in the shot. Unfortunately, I don't have remote filming yet with the video function. I can do it with like the actual taking still pictures on my phone, which is really cool, but I can't do that with the video. So there's a lot of tweaking involved. Hopefully this will work. I'm calling this a pajama vlog, even though I'm not actually in my pajamas anymore, because when I started this, I was in my pajamas. I'm in my pajamas in spirit. It's a day off of work. I'm just really just relaxing and chilling and just trying to recuperate before my next day of work tomorrow. So, and also just not really enjoying the weather we've been having. It's been very cold and rainy. Can't really do anything out in the garden, but I have a brief respite here from the rain, so we'll get a little video made. I wanted to talk about my garden pond, which you can kind of see behind me, hopefully. This has been an ongoing project for many years now. Like, I've been planning this for at least 5 years, but this year was the year I finally decided to actually put in the work and do it. And it's been several months to put it together, but it's nearly done. Most of what needs doing now is, sorry, mockingbirds are being very loud and obnoxious, as they are wont to do. But yeah, anyway, mostly what needs to be done now is just filling in the plants, which means letting the plants grow, and then just kind of tweaking and seeing how things go. This is not a project to be undertaken lightly if you are thinking of doing it yourself. It is a lot of regular maintenance, and it is a pretty significant expense. This basically is just a big hole in the ground that I've been throwing money into. It's been several $100s to get this done. I've gone over budget significantly. Even at several $100s, that's actually pretty cheap for a garden pond, but mine is also pretty small, so. But it's worth it. It's really worth it. I've been spending a lot more time out here just enjoying my garden, sitting on my little bench over there and just listening to the sound of the water is very relaxing. In the past, like, I've always been tempted, when I'm out here in the garden, I've always been tempted to get up and do something, but now I'm actually finding I'm spending more time just sitting and actually enjoying the garden, which is a definite bonus. I do have fish in the pond. That was pretty much a necessity. If you're going to have any kind of water feature in your yard, you need to have some way to control mosquitoes. And of course, my method of choice was fish, because it's a very natural way and you can get kind of a nice established ecosystem built up. You do need plants, of course, if you're going to have fish, because the fish waste tends to have a lot of nitrates that will eventually poison and kill the fish if it goes unchecked, but those plants will suck up those nitrates as fertilizer and turn them into nice leafy growth, so it creates a nice little balanced system there. I did introduce a little bit of pond water as well, just to get some of those natural microbes and bugs, you know, little critters that tend to inhabit ponds will now inhabit my pond as well and help to feed that ecosystem too. The water plant that I picked was called Ancharis, or Elodia is the old name for it. It's a very rapid growing submerged plant that has the bonus of also being edible for the fish, so they can kind of nibble on it a little bit and get some extra greens in their diet. But I have seven little goldfish in there. They're just the little feeder goldfish that we got at the pet store. The goldfish were actually the cheapest part of the pond. They were under $5 for all of them. And they're cute and it's fun to watch them. Mostly they hide down in the bottom, but I have one little orange one that's very brave, and he will come out and he will regularly eat the bugs that fall onto the surface of the water, and because of that, he's also now the biggest one, so it pays to be brave. But yeah, it's been a very enjoyable experience making this pond. Let me think. Let's go over the steps here. So I started in about February with actually digging the hole itself. I did that by hand, just with a regular round shovel and of course my garden knife for some of the finer detail work. And literally just hauled the dirt out with a bucket because my wheelbarrow was broken at the time. That was yet another expense that kind of got added onto this project that I wasn't anticipating. Yeah, my wheelbarrow's tire went flat, and it was only marginally more expensive to buy a new wheelbarrow than to replace the tire, so I just bought a new wheelbarrow. But Yeah, hole was dug out by hand. It only took me about one afternoon to do that, but it was a lot of work, and I was very sore for the whole rest of the week after that. Some of the dirt got piled up here to form the base for my waterfall. The rest of it is, some of it's still in a pile in my yard, just waiting to be distributed into the low spots in the lawn. I did have one low spot that I filled in already, just because it was really bothering me, seeing that puddle every time. It was right by my trash can, so every time I needed to take trash out to my trash can in the rain, I'd be stepping in ankle-deep water, so putting some of that clay down in there really helped with that. So, but yeah, lots of dirt that got moved out by hand. Then I had to lay down underlayment, which is sort of the cushioning for the pond liner and the liner itself. I used just a regular flexible plastic liner rather than one of the pre-made shells. The shells are a lot easier and a lot sturdier to work with, but you're very limited in what size and shape they come in, and I wanted something a little more custom. Golly, sorry, those mockingbirds are just like aggressively chasing other birds around my yard, so I'd like to do that. But one extra step I took before I put down the underlayment is I put down some hardware cloth, which is sort of a hard wire mesh. And the reason being for that is I do have a mole that likes to kind of roam around my yard, and I didn't want that mole to accidentally tunnel its way into my pond, because that would be disastrous. So put a little hardware cloth down just as an extra barrier to protect my pond. I'm sorry, there must be a mockingbird's nest near here somewhere, because they are being really aggressive. Anyway. So yeah, once the liner was in place, then start filling it with water, and you're kind of smoothing out the liner as it fills with water. The water, of course, will press, the weight of the water presses the liner into place, and you're going to actively smooth it out as it's filling. That is cold and wet work. I was very chilled doing that, because it was probably like late March, early April, I think, at that point, and it had been cold, so it was cold work, but we got it done. And then once the water was in there, it was then a matter of getting the stone and building the waterfall and setting up the pump for that. Waterfall has a waterfall box, which is that little plastic box there. That's where the water's coming out from. And then there's the tubing from the pump next to that, and kind of runs under the stone down into the pond where the pump is. Pump is a very nice one. It's one of the really quiet mag flow pumps. Doesn't make any noise. So. The stone was probably the largest single expenditure. There's a place near me that sells stone by the pound, but stone is heavy, and even at 40 cents a pound, it was probably about $200, $250 just for the stone, so that was a lot. But I lucked out, and you can see, maybe, the little stone right here that my waterfall is going onto had like sort of that natural concave bowl shape. I think it was originally from a stream, because it looked like it had that bowl shape that had already been carved out by water, so it was ideal for a waterfall. So yeah, really lucked out on that one, so I think that was really a good find. Very happy about that. So, and then everything else, like once the stone was in place and that was built, I had to put a little bit of foam sealer around my waterfall, because I did have a pretty substantial leak at one point. I've now managed to cut it down to just a small leak, but that small leak is watering my meadowsweet right here, which likes a little bit of wet ground. So as you can see, the goddess is almost completely subsumed in the meadowsweet right now, so it's doing very well. And a few other plants I have here. I did get a sweet flag, which it looks sad, but there is new growth coming up here, so it is bouncing back from its transplant. This is Bloody Dock, or Bloody Sorrel Rumex, which is actually an edible waterside plant, so I'm excited about that one. The waterfall there, my goodness, birds. Right by the waterfall, there's some watercress. Yeah, I see you, mockingbird. I know, I'm not messing with your nest. Anyway, I have watercress by the waterfall. Super excited about that, because that stuff is delicious. I'm really excited about being able to cook with that once that gets bigger. And then, of course, in the pond itself, it's not visible now, but it's coming out of dormancy. I did buy a water lily, so I'm really excited about that, because I've never had a water lily. Never had anywhere I could put a water lily, so being able to have a water lily is very exciting to me. So, and then, you know, this whole area now is just, it's just really nice ambiance, having that running water sound. A few things that still need to be done, of course, is getting some sort of lattice fencing to screen the view of my heat pumps, because they kind of detract from the ambiance. And then once those are hidden from view, I can then plant some vines that will also further help to screen them a little bit. Also need an outlet. So the outlet that I have in the crawl space for the pond pump isn't exactly working. So we need to get an electrician out here and figure out what's going on with that, so that I can actually have it plugged in 24/7, because right now my sort of jerry-rigged solution is I have a very long extension cord running all the way up around on my deck and into my back door, where it's then plugged into my kitchen. And that means I can only run the pond pump when the kitchen door is open. So every night I have to unplug it and then be able to close my kitchen door at night. So that's something that needs fixing, but we'll get that done by the end of the year, definitely. But yeah, I mean, that's basically my pond in a nutshell. It's been a lot of work. It will continue to be a lot of work. There is bi-weekly maintenance. I do need to top off the water fairly regularly, about twice a week, just because the splashing from the waterfall, just, you know, a few little drips and drops every few seconds, but that does add up over time, and the water level does decrease, so I need to make sure that that stays topped up for the health and safety of my fish, and also to keep everything running. And then, of course, just regular maintenance on making sure that the pond water stays clear. I have some things like barley extract to help with that. Making sure the fish are fed, you know, because even though they are eating plenty of bugs, they still need additional supplement fish food as well. Just a lot of little things that, you know, kind of all stacked up on each other to add up the cost that I hadn't really factored into my original budgeting. But yeah, I'm really happy with it regardless. I would be excited to hear if any of you others have ponds, because this is kind of a new project for me, and I always love brainstorming with other people on various things, because I'm always open for new learning. If any of you are thinking about it and have questions, I'd be happy to answer. I'm not exactly an expert. I'm very novice at this, but I can at least share what I do know from what I've learned, because, of course, anything I do always has to have a lot of research behind it first, because that's how I am. Very type A that way. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you regardless. And other than that, I hope this video finds you well, and I will see you again soon.